Let's fucking get this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I think I'm a boomer. I think I'm a zoomer. I think I'm a doomer. Damn, I'm Mike Zoomer. Okay. EGWHITE coming with the heat. I stay fooling with my bop. My tunes will make your speakers hot. Dance floor, hopscotch, baby, do the pop.
Welcome to the Grillcast, the only podcast in the world dedicated to radical centrism. I'm your host, Orion, and joining me as always is Micah. What's good, buddy?
What's up, man? It's been a while, hasn't it?
It's been too long. It's been too long indeed. And we have a very special guest with us today. She is the Queen Grifter Supreme, the pink flame of liberty, former secretary of the Libertarian Party.
Hey, Secretary in Exile.
Secretary in exile. We have Karen Ann. Hello, how are you
Carlos.
doing today?
I'm doing okay, but now you just bummed me out with that. I'm going to have to take a drink.
I'll join you on that one. Cheers.
Yeah, I got this super sweet wine, though. It's like so grossly sweet. Ugh, but
Oof.
it'll get me drunk, so that's all that counts, I guess.
I can't do the wine. It's too dangerous. It gets to you quick, and it's easy. It just goes down too easy.
Oh, that's what I'm looking for. It's pretty, since you reminded me of my fate. Oh, my God.
So let's talk a little bit about that exile process.
Yes.
So
give us the basic the rundown surrounding this coup d'état, and I guess the why foremost, and then maybe a little bit of the who.
Well, I'm sure everyone knows, like, obviously this is my opinion and other people will differ, but oh boy. Well, it's a bunch of bureaucrats that don't particularly like that I don't do the bureaucrat thing. I mean, but the more, less, whatchamacallit, flippant answer is I think the Libertarian National Committee we were taken by surprise by just this vast, huge step forward in government overreach. And for whatever reason, found ourselves very much asleep on the job and no idea how to wake ourselves up. And I was very, very unhappy about that and became increasingly unhappy about it. And it seems that some of my colleagues instead were like deer frozen in the headlights. It's not that I don't think they were good libertarians or anything like that. I just don't think they knew what to do. So they settled for circling the wagons and allowing no criticism. And that's just not my particular style. I don't care about protecting feelings more than I care about, well, let's wake up and finally do something about this. And it seemed the more we got to, I think, some kind of spiral amongst ourselves where the more I criticized, the more they felt like they wanted to do nothing just to spite me in a way. Like, that weird relationship you can get in.
So would you
where
say
somebody
you were,
needs to blink?
Right. So it sounds like you were kind of more of a go-getter amongst a inner party bureaucracy of pencil pushing nerds.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily
anything?
describe them at this point. Believe me, I'll get very unflattering in a minute. But at this point in my story, I wouldn't get that unflattering. I just don't think they knew what to do. And I ran on a platform of calling out incompetence. And the culture in any board of directors, particularly in very insular groups, is to circle the wagons and say, well, we'll keep all criticisms behind closed doors. And that's never been my style. So I've always been a very public praiser and a public criticizer. And nobody tends to have a problem with public praise, but they tend to have a problem with the other. And that caused a bit of an issue. But I was elected promising to do that.
Right.
And just my fellow LNC members didn't care for that much. And that's, that tension was one thing. But then the whole tensions within the party over, I mean, there's no other way to put it than the woke invasion came to the Libertarian Party. And there
Interesting.
was
And can
then
you
the
can you
counter.
describe what exactly you mean by that?
What I means by people who are very concerned with, you know, talking where everything's got to be about race and privilege and sex. I mean, it's the progressive agenda just with a libertarian coding on it.
Oh, okay.
The way it's come to everything, and it came to the Libertarian Party, and there was a reaction against that, and those two cultures kind of clashed, with it resulting in our former national chair, and this actually even started last term because our former national chair started turning the party very hard left, and so that started that whole downhill. And then the chair after him actually was engaged in backroom corruption to try to overthrow the duly elected board of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. And I uncovered that, was very aggressive in uncovering it. And that just kind of really brought everything to a head. And then that's when the removal motion started, to me,
Okay.
very openly in retaliation for my work in uncovering what happened with New Hampshire. But you know how it is, like, you know when when a couple fights, okay, and it seems like they're arguing about, the dude left the toilet seat up, but they're really arguing about the 20 things they didn't argue about before that had
Mhm.
just been building up. So while it was ostensibly in retaliation for New Hampshire, it was also in retaliation for my very sharp criticism over what I called their dereliction of duty in handling of the whole COVID issue. So it was those two things that I think led up to it, and there was also a lot of respectability politicking going on, where certain segments of the LNC think it's just unbecoming an officer to be saying fuck all the time. I hope I can say that. If I can't say that and you invited me on, you're in big problems.
Ah,
Um,
fuck.
so they didn't like my language. That is a little bit rough around the edges,
That's
and
kind of
thought that
that's
that would
retarded. The Libertarian National Committee has a problem with language.
some of them, not
Okay.
all of them.
Well,
Some of them obviously don't. So
that's
there's even a split there. But like
oh
former
my
Senator
god.
Epke, she had a big problem with my. The original charges against me was that I was indecorous. So that's why there's all the mud decorum jokes, and you care, Now, the one that they find the third time, because it took them 3 tries to get rid of me, allegedly, because it's not over yet. And I'm not saying that just being stubborn, like not like the Black Knight and Monty
No,
Python,
no, I
come
know
back
you
here and I'll bite your legs
well,
off.
yeah, I understand. You have like well, I was going to
An
ask,
appeal.
what your current plans for revenge
Yeah.
and asserting yourself as
Yeah.
the rightful secretary are, and if you think any of these plans that you have and this whole shebang, if you think it's going to cause, any type of image issues.
Well, okay, well,
I
let me
mean,
get to I'm
any
almost
worse than
there.
what you guys already have.
Well, I actually think it's signs of better things to come, believe it or not. So I'm almost there. Okay, you interrupted me like my husband.
Sorry.
So on the third try to get me out, they started reaching into that I was, a grifter, and I because I have a monetize. I listen. I'm almost a boomer, but I'm
Listening.
not. I escaped being a boomer by 2 years. So some of the accusations against me are so okay, boomer. Like, I have a reach of 13,000 and they think that's big. I'm like, I'd like to introduce you to PewDiePie, ma'am. Um, they just don't understand that people like YouTube for a living. Like, they just don't get it. And they're very hot and bothered by the fact that I have a Patreon, and they
Hmm.
just think this is just so unseemly. I could be a
Wait,
hooker and they'd have had no problem with it. But I have a Patreon, and that's just a bridge too far
have
for
you
the
considered
LNC. But
have you considered uploading all of your Patreon content to OnlyFans? Because if you did that, it sounds like, you could have your cake and
well,
eat it too.
See, and I tend to deal with this shit by joking, because now let me just. I always have to now qualify when I'm joking, because I actually had a joke I said come up during the LNC meeting, which I think was a first in parliamentary history, where someone said, seriously, we can't censor her because she said she'd gold plate it and fap to it. I'm like, that's a first in parliamentary history. I'm like, that's a joke, ma'am. So yeah, I once said I was going to live stream the LNC meetings topless and put it on OnlyFans. But that was a joke. Some
Nice.
people actually did take that seriously.
I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me if it wasn't a joke, to be honest. But
Well, my husband wouldn't allow it, so
that's
there you
fair,
go.
yeah. That's fair.
That's
A different person, different time.
And yeah, so they finally got me on that sort of thing, but the evidence, if you go and look at the quote unquote evidence, it's so bad. It's just a lot of it. What they did is they did some kind of search term and just found every single thing, like where I mentioned the LNC or the party at all, and just like did this huge like WikiLeaks data dump to try to like overwhelm people with, I guess, the quantity and not the quality, because some of them, the evidence is just so bad. So yeah, that's what they got me on. But what it boiled down to is just some LNC members didn't like me. They didn't like me, though, when I was elected. It had come out in the investigation that a group of them had been trying to remove me from the moment I was elected. So from the moment I was elected, a certain group of them were scheming to overthrow the will of the delegates. The delegates don't have to consult the rest of the LNC to make sure they only elect people that everyone else likes. It's like, deal with it. This is the real world. Sometimes you have to work with people you don't like. I don't like all of them either, but I never
Right.
tried to remove them because I don't like them. Obviously, someone did. The delegates elected them, and I respect that. But they couldn't do the same. So and they denied me due process, which was that's the most embarrassing thing, I think, right now for the party, is that for the party that argues for due process in every other area of life, didn't even give one of their officers due process. And one of them actually said, even if our bylaws are immoral, we have to follow them. So I actually said, in the meeting, I go, you sound just like a cop. It's the law. Got to follow. I don't agree, but it's the law. I just couldn't believe some of the things that were coming out of libertarians' mouths.
Yeah.
So that's what my judicial appeal is based upon, that there was no cause. They just didn't like me, and that's not a reasonable cause to remove an officer, and that I wasn't granted due process, and that they had dirty hands. So there was so much like scheming that went on that was quote unquote legal procedurally, but it was unethical as hell.
So it kind of sounds like the libertarian deep state came after you and the only crime you committed was keeping it too real. Is that a fair synopsis of the situation?
Yeah, you just did it. Yeah, thank you for showing me up and being much shorter. Yeah, I'm long-winded. Yeah, that was it.
I'm used to being shorter.
That's what she said. That's the long and short of it.
Right.
So
okay,
we'll see how my appeal goes. But once you get to an appeal stage, the burden of proof is against me. I'm like, I have to prove myself innocent now, rather than they have to prove me guilty. So it's a long shot.
So I guess to just to kind of like end out this kind of segment, if the appeal doesn't go and doesn't end up succeeding, your plan is to just run again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm running in Reno, either for re-election or reinstatement, one or the other. But my campaign's kind of on hold because I don't really know what direction I'm taking yet. My campaign team just doesn't really know, like, what's our message? I go, I don't know yet.
Okay. Well, yeah, that was a lot to process. I feel like I've just had the window opened on the inner workings of a party I thought I was somewhat familiar with.
But you had said, though, like, was this an embarrassment to the party? Yes. However, I like to tell people, if this was going on in the DNC or the RNC, you wouldn't even know about it, for one thing. Like, if their secretary
Yeah,
was being so mouthy, they would all of a sudden know something about Hillary and suicide in the
that's
back of the head type of thing.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
fact that everyone knows about it, I think is a good sign. And I think what's happened with me has kind of become a flashpoint that is going to it's a rallying point for people to reform this party. So that's
right. And
why,
we're and we're
the
gonna have some
okay,
some questions later on about kind of involving the future of the party
okay.
in general.
But
But
I'm not bleak at all. No matter what happens with
okay,
my appeal,
well that's good.
I actually am so fucking positive about the future of this party post next election, not election, convention.
But
So the Reno reset is real, and I think the sky's the limit for the LP.
Before we
alrighty.
move on, though, I do want to ask one more question pertaining to this. Is there anybody in particular that you would like to name and shame?
And drop dirt on.
Oh no, I've already done. I mean, the 11 people that voted for me should never be near another leadership position again. I mean, that voted again for me
No,
to be removed.
okay, but nothing like no like
Um,
embarrassing, embarrassing text messages or, possibly incriminating evidence. Not saying you're a narc or anything, but just for the sake of going,
Nah,
haha, look what they
we're
did.
yeah, it's not quite that juicy. It's all just political
All right.
shenanigans. There's no sex scandals. There's no dead hookers. There's
Oh,
nothing like that.
oh,
Now,
we
see, I
tried.
think
I mean, there's a lot of just shady backroom deals. It's politics.
part of your plot for revenge could include, setting people up for things like that. Like hire a hooker to go to one of their motel rooms at the convention, right? And then,
Yeah,
get
but
some
see, now these are
pictures of that.
libertarians. That would probably be a plus. What I'd need to do is
They'd
actually
they'd be
like,
applauded. They'd be awarded.
yeah,
Get pictures of
I
them
don't know.
secretly
I'd
paying
have
their
to.
taxes.
Get
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna have to find out that they actually wrote the government and said they underpaid their taxes one year and said, here's a check. That would do it.
So I guess let's move it on to doing some. I think we had some philosophical Q&A. I mean, we are a podcast that tries to relay news and knowledge to the radical centrist movement out there, and so we like to bring in people from all the entire spectrum of ideologies to kind of elaborate on positions and delve into a little bit of the philosophical mumbo jumbo. So I think Orion had a couple questions he wanted to
Okay.
ask you.
Right, totally. So I guess the first question I have to ask is that libertarians get kind of a bad rap in a lot of ways, and
Not from
the
us. Definitely
not
not
from
from
us,
us.
not from us. I love libertarians, but one thing in particular that comes up a lot when talking about libertarians is the age of consent thing, and how
Mm-hmm.
libertarians kind of seem united in trying to get that as low as possible. Is that a fair characterization of the party and its goals, or is that a fringe element? Like, what's
What's
this
going
all
on?
about? What's going on over
I
there?
only ever hear about this issue from people asking about libertarians. It's a non-issue pretty much with libertarians.
But
I
well,
don't.
no, it comes up when you bring it up though. It's more so it's not so more as it's something initiated on your side as it is you're talking to somebody about the age of consent issue in particular, and a lot of the times I guess people feel like there's a trend of libertarians raising their hand to defend a lower age of consent or like not wanting
I
the
don't think
government to
that's.
make rules.
Well, I'm an anarchist, so I'm not going to want the government to make rules on anything.
Right.
So to like pick out that one issue, um, it's like, yeah, well, I don't want the government to make rules on like zoning either. But that doesn't. But let me have here's a libertarian confession here. I always love to ask other libertarians, what issue are you most statist on? The issues that I am most statist on that I have like a knee jerk emotional reaction that might not be completely grounded in libertarian philosophy has to do with animals and children. So I'm probably not a good person to ask that with, because if I had to concede one area of laws, it would be animals and children. I just have soft spots there. I know the arguments, but it's not anything that I am ever particularly interested in debating.
Right. And we actually had a left-wing anarchist kind of fold on that as well, and basically say like, no, it's like I don't really have an
It's
answer other
just
than
not.
we
I mean, I don't believe in a government age of consent. I mean, I'll
right.
easily say that.
Okay.
But I also don't think
Me
the one
neither.
that we have is probably necessarily too far off from what would be mutually like custom.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
I mean, I do.
I get
I
there's like
don't
this
think
there's the
something magic
societal
happens.
standards. There's the
Right.
societal
I mean,
standards versus the government, setting
right.
in
I,
stone. But
I
I think the matter comes to hand of enforcement, which is obviously something.
And also how it, on the left side of this libertarian argument, also how it disproportionately affects like religious minorities such as, Islamists. Like we have to look into that as well.
True, potentially, but you have to wonder, is that necessarily a function of the religion or a function of culture? There's a lot of but when there is disparate impact, I think you definitely do need to look. I could tell you where I think a lot of libertarians go wrong is when they point to older societies, however many hundreds of years ago, or even going back to the Bible and say, well, Mary was however old. Is it's actually a sign of affluence to have extended childhood, and we shouldn't want to be arguing backwards to where you had to grow up faster because you were going to die earlier, and that's not a good thing when kids have to be adults at 13 and 14 years old. That we should actually think ourselves very blessed that we can extend childhood to 18 even. Like I
To
don't really
30
think that,
to 40 even.
well, you know what I'm saying. I just don't think comparing like modern society with ancient society, where a lot of people will say on the frontier,
Okay.
my great married at 13. Yeah, okay. And they also didn't have penicillin. What's your point? So the way I tend to deal with the issue, first of all, saying that I'm quite statist on this one because protecting children is near and dear to my heart. I do think there needs to be a clear path to emancipation, because I think clearly we can all probably even think of our lives of people that matured quite fast, and were able to assume the full custodianship of their own rights earlier than maybe some of their peers. Um, and rather than making everybody more susceptible to possible predation, to do perhaps the opposite, where it's a rebuttable, like the age of the age of majority, could be, I think, needs to be a more rebuttable presumption. Like you're presumed not competent till a certain age, but there needs to be a very easy and clear path to rebut that. And I think that would go a long ways into balancing these concerns.
All
Well,
right.
I like that answer. I think that dissuaded a lot of notions that people might have about the creepier ideas.
Yeah, well,
That
the
people.
libertarians who want to talk about this a lot, I look at them with a stink eye because I'm like, this is shouldn't be that big of an issue to you. Like, what's the deal here?
Generally speaking, I feel like there's a lot of things that libertarians like to talk about that don't necessarily help them a lot.
It's just that I have to tell you that this, amongst libertarians in intra-libertarian circles, that topic does not. I can't even think of the last time it came up without it being brought
Oh
up
yeah,
by
that's what I
somebody who
said.
wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
All right.
So, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of
We
libertarians will take a bit of umbrage with what I said, but I think it's reasonable way to balance, you know,
yeah.
some there are some competing interests, and I do think we need to face
Well,
the reality that there are predators.
Right.
Fair and
And
balanced.
with that note, I think we should move on to a more comfortable topic. Orion, what's the next one you got?
All right, yeah, this one will be a little bit easier. So John
Private
McAfee,
nukes.
private
Private
nukes.
news.
We'll get to that one, but I want to ask you about John McAfee, former presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. What are your views on him? Did you support him at all? Do you think that he was Epstein when he died in prison, or like, what do you think about all this? You ever meet the guy?
I met him at the 2016 convention, but I was a brand new libertarian then, so I can't say that. Like I wasn't all that. Was I even an anarchist then? Yes, I was. But I never had many interactions with him. But no, I don't think he killed himself at all. No.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
we
think
we
so
we
either.
definitely, yeah, very
I mean, he
unlikely.
lived the libertarian life. I mean, I
Yes.
you know, I'll give him props, man. That dude was
Yes.
a badass.
You
I'm
kick
not
my dog,
so
I will kill you.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. He wasn't the candidate I supported for president that year. I had supported Daryl Perry. Uh,
Oh.
well, just saying, you asked. Daryl Perry's gone off the rails since then, so I can't say that the Daryl Perry of today is the same that I knew back then. But so I didn't know much about McAfee's campaign. I got very close with his good friends with his campaign manager, Chris Thrasher, who I remain friends with today.
Okay, before we
Yeah.
move on to that though, you mentioned earlier that you didn't know if you were an anarchist or not 4 years ago. And what I find interesting is that most people become anarchists when they're like, teenagers and then move on from it. But you became an anarchist later in life. What was your
Oh, that's
early.
very diplomatic way to put it. You're like, hey, old lady,
I mean, I
what's
didn't want to
what's a
say.
nice cougar like you?
I didn't want to call you a boomette or anything, but if you're gonna force my hand here. But yeah. So what inspired that change? What were your earlier views, and what led you to this point?
um, I wasn't political really before, so I can't
Based.
even say I gave politics hardly any thought. But once you go down the libertarian rabbit hole, uh, the joke is, and it's a joke because there's a lot of truth to it, is that up to this point, the Libertarian Party has been really, really good at one thing, and that is taking a small government constitutionalist and turning him into an anarchist in short order. And that is certainly like what happened with me. I would have considered myself a small government constitutionalist when I first got involved. And, 7 months later, and I'm like, what do we even need any of that for? So it's just to me, I know some of my minarchist friends will get very upset, but I do think anarchism is the consistent expression of libertarian philosophy.
Right.
And I have autism. That should just explain it right there.
Okay. Yeah. That's.
So yeah, that's interesting.
That was probably the
you
more explanatory. Yeah.
It's interesting that you did you use the phrase pipeline or what was it, rabbit hole or whatever. A lot of people have made a connection, saying that a lot of libertarians end up going the way of the alt right, that they become wing cells of the alt right. What do you think about
Is
that?
the alt right
And why
even
do
a
you think
thing
that
anymore?
happens? Well, I
I
mean,
don't even.
nobody would use that terminology, but it's certainly it's certainly still some semi prevalent
The thing.
ideology among the, yeah,
Yeah. The thing about the
among the
alt
wing
right.
cells.
The alt right don't call themselves alt right anymore. They're kind of like the gender kids, and that they say, "Well, no, I'm not actually alt right. I'm like
They're kind of like the
crypto."
what? Did you say the
The
gender kids?
Yeah, like the gender kids. Oh no, I'm not alt right. I'm a special version. I'm a crypto neo Confederate fucking
Well, but
fascist
what
or
are the
I'm
whatever.
like?
a
No, like
I'm a
seriously, I don't.
nationalist. I'm a, yeah.
I don't even think anybody who because I'm not getting hung up on labels. I mean, I don't even think that philosophies are. Is it like who would be?
Yeah.
Who would
Oh,
you
it's
say would?
100% a thing. Who would I say falls into that category? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there are literally people in Congress, you know. I
Oh,
mean,
right? Like who?
mm,
Like I'm asking.
I mean,
I'm not being like facetious.
well, like I think Steve King at one point was one of the big names, and then there was another guy that like got involved with the whole. If you remember Nick Fuentes, there was another congressman who kind of endorsed his whole movement, and that would all have been
So you're talking about like the white
categorized.
identity people?
Yeah, sure. I
So
mean, that's
like
all. Isn't
the
that all? That's all right if I understand correctly.
I get
Anyways,
I'm really in
there's this idea that a lot of these people were at one time libertarians, and I can speak to that. I know some. I've known some of these people who have made that transition, specifically from being involved with libertarian organizations to kind of. So what do you how do you feel about that? Like, what do you think that is all about?
I haven't seen that in action, but what I would say is this is libertarianism is an extreme philosophy. I mean, I'm unabashedly a radical, and I
Based.
think that will attract a certain kind of person
Hmm.
that flits from one extreme thing to another without really having much root in
Right.
themselves. So I don't think it's anything about libertarianism. It's about extreme philosophies in general. That there are certain unstable personality types that will get attracted to it and go from one thing to another.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't think there's anything in libertarian philosophy in its unique characteristics that is some kind of pipeline. But
Okay.
I do think that you will always find amongst fringe, because libertarianism is a fringe philosophy. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm just meaning it in a just
Oh,
a descriptive
we
way.
know it's fringe. We know.
Yeah, that you will find cross pollination amongst fringe groups, because it's a certain kind of mindset that allows you to even go that way to begin with, I guess. But I don't think it's anything in libertarianism itself that lends itself to the noxious ideology of like the white identitarian type thing. In fact, I would think quite the opposite, that um, it's so individualistic that even like considering yourself like white is too collectivist. Like, I don't know if I'm making any
Mhm.
sense, but uh,
Well, that's if I mean that's if
identitarian.
you yeah I mean and I guess it's someone would say that's if you kind of follow the whole hard line like to be a libertarian means you are completely to be a collectivist is completely objectionable, whereas some people just kind of like some policies that could be considered libertarian, right?
Well, that could be. Then I wouldn't say it was then. I was trying to make some kind of, because you asked about like a pipeline, if there was any kind of direct connection, and I really don't, because of the collectivism angle. However, I do think that there are some terrible people who see in libertarianism, um, uh, falsely, I would say, permission for them to be as terrible as they want to be.
Well, that's why I was attracted to libertarianism.
Right. Yeah, and I know, and I think another part of it is and people who say this sort of thing, maybe coming from the left at least, view libertarians as being largely a group of nerdy white people, and so they might have that image association.
Um, could be. I don't really see like alt writers though, or even
No,
like
no, no, no.
the white.
I'm not saying that like
Oh,
because
okay.
they're. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they think that
Well,
these
I mean,
people
it would be. I have my own theory, and I've done some talks on this. I
on
mean,
why
we
libertarians are so white. Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
no, I
You all
think
are
that's an
very
issue.
white. It is an
It's very
issue.
white.
I'm very
It's
disappointed.
very very white, and it's also very male. Um,
Also very disappointing
And smelly.
who
and
libertarians?
smelly.
We're just giving you a hard
Sorry,
Um,
time.
just we're just.
just go for it. I had done some talks on theories on as to why that can be and why I don't think it necessarily has to be. But I think we would be putting our heads in the sand if we didn't acknowledge that it's a reality. The why it's a reality is something different from the objective reality.
Okay. And so
I
what
mean,
you're
it is
saying
very
is you
white.
would you would like you
It's
would
very
like it
white.
you would like it if it were less white? Is that what you're saying?
I think we would be more enriched. I don't like have racial quotas, but I can
Hmm.
tell you, just let's move it outside of politics just for 1 second because I think I can analogize this. I come from South Florida originally, and where the
I'm
neighborhood I
sorry.
was in, I love Florida there, at least that part. I don't like the flatness of it, but I love the people. Um, it was a like as ethnically diverse as you could possibly be, and that was just normal to me. And when I came out here, like it was culture shock. And Castle Rock is fucking whiter than the Libertarian Party, if that's even possible. And I was like, "Where are the black people? There are no
Where,
black people here." And I had a
Where's the
black friend
help?
from Florida visit me,
where oh my
and
god.
no,
I'm
even the
sorry.
help
Go
is
ahead.
white. Let's put it. That's how white Castle Rock is. Okay, it's awful. And my I had a black friend from Florida visit here, and she was like, "I feel like a raisin in a bowl of milk." I'm like, "Yeah, that's about what it is. It's awful." And I find it very oppressive because it's so monotonous. Um,
So
so in analogizing that back to politics, I only think we would be better to be less white only because of the different perspectives, not because there's anything inherently good about, we need to have this, much distribution of melanin. But the fact is that there are different cultures. So more so than a skin tone diversity is, I think, more of a cultural diversity we would be enriched by.
I gotta I gotta ask. So libertarians, they think that people should generally, pay for things out of their own pocket and, privately collect. So, George Soros allegedly hires a lot of people to
Allegedly.
go to protest for him. And do you think you could possibly like outbid George Soros in hiring those people to go to like libertarian events and kind of, enrich
Oh,
it a
but
little
if
bit?
you trust the left, we got the Koch dollars, don't we? If I had a dollar for every time I got told I was getting paid by the Koch brothers, I would probably be as rich as the Koch brothers. I I if I would have no problem with bidding with for them on the open market. I don't
I
really
feel
think
like I
the
feel like endorsing bidding for colored people on the open market is probably not, the best look for the Libertarian Party, but I also wouldn't be, very surprised by
okay, now stop there. To me, the typical George
it.
Soros protester is not some black young kid. It's some white hipsters, and I think it's still okay to bid for white hipsters on the open market.
Okay. Well, that's
That's pretty fair. That's fair.
okay. Um, so I think now I'd like to move us into talking about the future, as I was bringing up earlier, and kind of relating it back to this program and our audience and our whole messaging, is that I think that for some time, at least in my view, libertarians have tried to present themselves every election cycle as a sort of third way, quote unquote, to the electorate.
Hmm.
Sort of almost like a center position. I mean, obviously that
Oh
is
no,
not an
no, no,
accurate.
that no.
Well, hold on,
That's
hold on, hold on, hold on. Before
okay.
you
You just
counter signal
triggered
this,
the
I
absolute fuck out of
understand,
me.
but before you counter signal this, you have to admit that the last two, or sorry, not the last two, but two of the last three times you've fielded a national candidate, Gary Johnson, for all intents and purposes, is more of a centrist than he is a libertarian, from what I understand. So
Uh,
the image at least seemed to be that way. That's how me and a lot of people, who aren't always involved with, or who haven't been involved with libertarian politics, saw it. Um, so there's this kind of third way kind of image associated,
well,
at
I
least
agree
at
the
least
third way image. I just don't think the third way that we're
Okay.
presenting
Well, let me let
is
me
centrist.
let me keep going with this. So recently, like literally like a day or two ago, Andrew Yang, who was a Democrat, he just recently launched a new third party, a third way party. And
Mhm.
I was actually in attendance the other night for one of the first meetings, promotional type.
What's the name of it?
It's called the Forward Party. Um,
The only reason I'm asking is I love doing opposition research. I've been doing a ton on the People's Party, so now you just added one to my radar. So
okay.
send me info.
Uh-oh.
I want to go to
So
the meeting.
how do you?
Uh-oh.
So
I
considering that,
can't hide. You'll see me coming a mile away. I'm very open about my opposition research.
so yeah, I was there, and I got to speak to Yang for for a minute, and got his new book, and I got him to actually embrace the term radical centrist. I told him I think the general ideas about opposing the Democrats and Republicans are very good, and that
Mhm.
there's a lot of us radical centrists out there that we're not getting the recognition that we deserve, that we rightfully deserve. And he actually he tweeted, quoting exactly what I said to him, that he's presenting a new home for us radical centrists. So how do you think this is going to impact the libertarians, especially since Yang's new party embraces using the state, which
Good.
which the majority of people do as well, in my opinion. In my opinion,
Embraces what using what
using
the
the state.
state.
Yeah.
Just well, no doubt about that. Um, I have always said that I would love for there to be a very, very. You're not gonna. You're not gonna like what. Maybe you'll like what I have to say because you won't find it personally insulting. But there's going to be some libertarians who are going to hear what I have to say, and they're going to act like I just ran over their dog, backed up and ran it over again.
They might kill you for that.
They might. There are a lot of centrists in the Libertarian Party who are in the wrong party because we're not a
Yeah.
centrist party. And I think they'd be much happier and productive somewhere else. That's not a purge thing because as long as
Can
anyone
you
wants
tell
to
them about our
stay,
show?
I listen, I want there to be a centrist party. I want there to be a strong
Base.
centrist party so that the libertarians could stop having these stupid internal battles about what we're not. Honestly, and it
wait, so you're like, no, we need to get all these centrists out of here so we can go back to arguing about selling heroin to 5-year-olds on the debate stage.
of course, the real important issues of the day. Nobody's but in when people are in a party trying to make it something it isn't, nobody is happy. The people who want it to be what it's supposed to be aren't happy. The people who are trying to make it something it's never going to be aren't happy. And everyone's happier if they're where they belong. And that's for everyone's own soul searching.
Mhm.
Like, I never tell anybody, like, I am not a purger at all. Like, if somebody wants to be in the LP, welcome. If you agree with one thing, great, welcome. But in general, I
What if
Really?
think
that one?
there's a lot of people in the LP because it's the best fit so far. But if there was a centrist party, that would be a better fit and they would be happier. That's it. But if they would rather stay in the LP, I'm fine with that too. But I think the country needs a centrist party because it's not the LP. And trying to make the LP that is just an exercise in futility. And I do think we need a centrist party. So I welcome it.
So
Ryan, what were you
this
gonna say
is
earlier?
this is kind of the only party I've ever heard of, or the only person advocating for a party that actively wants people to join a different party. Like like the Democrats and Republicans are both trying to dupe people into thinking that they're Democrats or Republicans, right?
Yeah, I want people to be where it's the best fit for them. And everybody will be more productive that way. And I think we will then actually be able to compete with the actual ideas that everyone actually stands for better. I, th- I, I don't want anyone to leave. However, if they're not libertarians, they should be where what they are.
They should get off your lawn.
No, I say no. You guys are trying to paint this like badly, and I'm not.
I'm not.
I
I'm
don't.
really not. I was just joking.
Okay.
I was really
We're
just.
just
Well,
making
others will
jokes
try to
here.
paint it badly,
I'm
and
not.
that's not at all what I'm saying. But I do think everyone will be more productive being in the place that's the most natural fit for them. And right now, the LP is the most natural fit for a lot of people who would be more at home in a centrist party. But we're not centrist at all, and I think it's lying to the voters to pretend like we are, and I'm
Well,
not a big fan
you guys actually might have a cooperative future. I mean, I know that you guys work with other third parties for
we do
ballot
all the
access
time.
purposes, and there was actually a guy by the name of Dan Fishman, I think,
Yeah, he was our old executive director.
yeah, he was at the event, and he gave Yang his card and was talking about, if there's any help that they can offer with ballot access. And I think that that's definitely going to be self-serving in the future, because part of the initiative for Andrew Yang at this point is to uh, increase the amount of states that use ranked choice voting and stuff like
And
that.
I'm all about that too.
So
I'm active in RCV Colorado. That's my other thing, my nonpartisan thing that I'm involved with. And I would definitely say there's common cause there. There's also common cause with the People's Party there. I mean, they're a bunch of commies. I don't have common cause
no
with them
idea.
with hardly anything. But
Yeah, I've never heard of
RCV
them.
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, they are the Bernie Bros
Okay.
that started their own party, and they just got ballot access
That's
in
so
Florida. They have working groups, I think, in every state now. So they're up and coming. I volunteered some parliamentary work for them. So there can be some cooperation
So
for sure on certain issues, and they're very anti-war, so we cooperate with them on that sort of thing, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of common cause too with Yang's
so
new party.
so you consider libertarianism and anarchism to be inherently right-wing beliefs?
No.
No,
No.
That's
Okay.
the opposite
not
of what you
whatsoever.
said.
No.
So you can,
I don't. I'm. If I had to place myself on the bullshit grid, which I just completely reject, I would consider myself center left. When it comes to just the
Interesting.
wider broad, I'm not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination.
Interesting. Are you sure that's not like a collective cope?
What's a collective cope mean?
So you know what like coping is?
Yeah.
I just kind of
I
find
have
it.
to do it every day when I'm an anarchist living in a statist world. I know coping very well.
Well, I just think it's I would argue that saying anarchists, well, at least libertarian, not let's not use the anarchist label, because it can kind of get obnoxious figuring out what anarchy means to a certain, it's a little bit different depending on who you talk to.
It is. It's a very
When I hear libertarian, as someone who is not libertarian, as someone who is not conservative, as someone who is not left wing necessarily, I don't think center left. That's just, I don't think many people who hear liberty. And what do you? Okay, yeah, let's answer that question real quick. Why do you think that is? That it's just automatically associated with the right wing? Because I'll give you this. I'm not going to say that libertarians are right wing, but I definitely wouldn't personally. I wouldn't associate with them. With
well. I
being
didn't say
center
all
left.
libertarians. I was talking about myself personally.
Okay.
I didn't say libertarianism. I said me.
Yeah.
I don't think. I don't know.
Or
Perhaps
what makes you more center left than center right, or right as a libertarian or anarchist? What qualifies? What would qualify? Do you have any accredited sources to back up your claim?
I'm the highest authority on myself.
Okay.
That's my accredited. Well, for one thing, one distinctly left view that I have, even when it comes to economics, is I don't think corporations are even remotely libertarian or just or ethical by any stretch of the imagination, and they should die in a fire.
Okay, well, right wingers think that too these days. I mean, honestly.
Not any that I know.
Tucker Carlson.
They don't like certain corporations like Facebook, but other ones like Lockheed Martin, they're particular.
Tucker Carlson? Fox News' primetime voice?
He doesn't decry all corporations. I decry the very concept of corporations to begin with.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
I'm not talking about just the big ones. I don't believe.
Isn't that... Go ahead, Orion.
So
Sorry.
you don't believe corporations are people?
No,
because that's
I don't
ridiculous.
believe corporations are anything. They're creatures of the state. I mean, it's completely, I think they're completely illegitimate. Now, most libertarians disagree with me. So that's why I said if I had to place myself, that would be one very distinctly, typically left
Well,
position that I have.
no wonder the Koch brothers
But I
aren't giving you
also,
any
when it
money.
comes to just like social things, like, there's a lot of like what libertarians would be like, yeah, no, there shouldn't be any drug laws, but then they have to like almost do like the sign of the cross and say, but drugs are bad, okay? I don't feel any need to do that.
Right, because
I don't
drugs
give a
aren't
shit.
bad. I mean,
I don't think
we've all
drugs are
done them. We know
particularly
that.
bad. I don't believe they are. I believe it's part of the human experience and that it's this weird kind of puritanism that's left over to make us have to reflexively say that. I don't have a problem with it. So that's another thing that I would say is not at all socially conservative. I also don't think there's anything particularly sacrosanct about the nuclear family. I think that's one arrangement. I'd like to see Heinleinian line marriages, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of arrangements that
Can you-
might be just as good.
What is that? What is what is the Heine Linian?
Haven't you read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress?
No.
Okay, well, there's this. Well,
I don't know how to read.
That's fair.
Okay, well, that's why you're not a libertarian. Just joking. It's a science fiction novel that's very libertarian, but it has this weird marriage arrangement. I just think that there are other arrangements that might be just as functional. So I don't like.
Can you describe it though, just really quickly? The arrangement of the marriage.
It's like a cooperative that like exists in perpetuity. Like you're married to like a bunch of different people, and
So
other
like
people are voted into the marriage.
So like a corporation?
No, because there isn't limited liability and state protection and stocks and shareholders and all that. It's just it's a living entity marriage that like it's almost like a clan that's a marriage that persists throughout generations.
Okay.
Wait, so
and they raise children collectively.
I'm having a hard time like imagining this. So it's like a polycule on steroids.
Fiction. Come on, go, dude.
So it's all libertarianism. Got it,
dude. I didn't know we were. Do I have to break out the claws now?
Break out the claws?
No.
Go for it. No. Go for it. Break out the claws.
Bitch.
Go for it. Hey,
I got to treat you like my fellow LNC members? You're going to be throwing me out next thing you know?
Karen, look, please. Look, I respect libertarianism a lot. I just think, it's kind of a little bit pie in the sky, a little bit fringe. Not for everyone, and for good reason. And, I think some people are big-brained enough to wrap their minds around it, but and practically, I don't think it's realistic. And that's not to be insulting.
I don't. I hear that all the time. What I actually think is the future political evolution is actually panarchy. I don't believe in.
What?
Wait a second.
What?
Panarchy.
Uh-oh.
Please describe what panarchy is. I've never heard this.
Okay. Well, that's. It's basically it's anarchy with a recognition that most people want to be governed. So it would be trying to, as close as possible, let everyone have what they want. So it would be and how it would actually work out is hard to envision because we've never. It's new things are often hard to envision.
No, you can't prove it negative.
That you can voluntarily opt into as whatever system that you, along with others who are like-minded with you, believe is the best for human flourishing on your own vision. So if you want to be a bunch of commies with a bunch of other commies, then go and commie together. And I don't think libertarians,
All right.
So
she's literally talking about the radical centrist commune you're starting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you want to listen, now I'm gonna get now saucy with you. If you want to be just the middle of road, can't make a decision, limp wristed, whatever, go ahead.
That's not radical centrism.
I know that. I know, but you guys were doing your caricatures. I'm going to do mine. Thank you,
You literally
sir.
brought me a concept from science fiction, and now you're pitching me panarchy. Is that science fiction too? Look, is there
No,
more?
no,
Is there
that's an
like
actual
tanarchy?
philosophy.
Is there tanarchy where
Listen, I
everybody
own the
is just
domain
like,
is there
panarchy.com, damn it.
stanarchy?
yeah? Is there planarchy where everybody just makes a bunch of plans all the time and follows through on them
Yeah, that's all
punctually?
part of panarchy. You could be a stanarchist in panarchy.
A
Is
planner.
Go right
it
ahead.
Kazakhstanarchy?
Why not? So
Well,
I I I I I don't think trying to get everyone to agree on any particular political system is ever going to be anything that's ever going to succeed. And
Agreed.
I
I can agree
believe
with
in
that.
giving everyone what they want to the extent possible.
so I have to ask about panarchy. What if
Oh my god.
there's one group that says, all right, so here's what we want to do is we want to get as many people as possible and then claim this land here, right? And then we're going to form a government and we're going to make taxes and build roads
I
and
think what you mean is
stop
like,
people from
yeah, they're gonna incorporate the non-participants against their will.
Well, and again, and the reason why ultimately panarchy is kind of a libertarian, it still falls under the libertarian rubric because the overarching concept of everybody has to agree is still like the one rule. It's the one ring to rule them all.
like everyone has to agree or just a majority? Like is it democratic
No,
or is
Does
it like
everyone
everybody?
under you.
So does everybody have to wear the ring at some point, or what?
like if they don't
I'm not.
agree,
I'm
do
just
you take them out back and shoot them? I don't understand how you could possibly get
you
everyone to.
can't argue against your own self ownership without there's some things that are presuppositionally true that you can't argue against without presuming it. You it's inherently self-contradictory, and the fact that you are the owner of yourself and that it is wrong to violate your own self-ownership and your own will, you can't argue against it without presuming it. So that is the one overarching principle. But if a bunch of people want to get together and agree to lay aside their rights to protest having money, taken from them to be used for something they might not necessarily have chosen, that's voluntary. That's fine. Everyone has to agree. And this is why in panarchy, there wouldn't be these giant, like, nations because you're not going to get that many people to agree. And there'll be a lot of little sub communities that can compete and see what works out the best.
Ah,
And
the
I think
free
it would
marketplace of
eventually work out
ideals.
Ideas.
basically instead of ideas of ideals. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that we could probably talk forever about these philosophical concepts because we're kind of smart guys. I mean, I'm sure you can tell that
Are you?
at this point. I mean, we yeah. I mean, it's kind of a given, but I think we should we should probably.
Are you handsome too?
I
And
am.
humble?
My
I
mom
am.
tells me I am all the time. And
I
I'm the most
yeah.
humble man I know.
So,
Yeah.
By
but
far.
I think we should probably
Wrap
close
up
out the
here.
episode and I guess see if you have any news on what you're going to be doing next, and then plugs that you have so that we can inform our hundreds and 20 of listeners. You know.
Well, yeah, a lot depends. My life's on hold till the judicial committee thing. But I'll be running again one way or another. And I have my own YouTube channel, Pink Flame of Liberty, with probably maybe only 100 more.
No, you have a decent sized channel. You've been at it. You've been making some good content.
Been doing it a little while. So
Yeah.
and some of the, even though they they haven't exactly been brought to the fore, I would say some of the criticisms I think that you may have with some libertarians or libertarianism of it not being sufficiently humanitarian or empathetic or things like that, I would probably agree with a great deal of the time. And
Oh, I don't
those
care
are some of
about
the
any of
things. Oh, okay. Well, then fuck you then.
that. No.
That is, it's something I care about. That I do think there's some evolution that needs to happen in that regard to make it more. I don't even want to say appealing, because I'm not saying it needs to be done like as some kind of marketing tactic. I think it's something that needs to be done for our own good. That sometimes I think libertarians get off too much on seeing who could be the most brutalistic in the room. And that's not something that's going to appeal to anybody except for the incels that for some reason seem to think that, in Mad Max that they're
great-
going to be king of the hill, and they won't. They'll be somebody's bitch just like everybody else.
So
So-
the great incel threat is even prevalent within the libertarian movement.
Yeah,
I can't believe that.
It is. It is. They're everywhere. And, I think they're worse than cockroaches. Even they'll be after a nuclear war, man. There'll be incels and fucking cockroaches.
This is what I find hilarious is like women from every political, sphere, no matter what.
We all
of them
know.
are united in hating incels. Absolutely despise them. It's awesome.
So
I guess
anyway,
I do have one last question before you go. I do want to thank you for rolling with the punches. And I want to encourage all of our listeners to follow you, Pink Flame of Liberty on YouTube. That's correct? Yes.
That is correct.
So the last question I want to ask, and it's something that I've been mulling around in my head a little bit during this whole interview. So as somebody, who knows a lot of libertarians, and you've said that you were autistic yourself, do you think that there's a higher prevalence of autists in the Libertarian Party?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Like, without a doubt. Absolutely, without a doubt. Like, we are the dictionary definition of weaponized autism.
All right.
Head sideways, yes.
Thank you for that.
And I'm not being facetious. I am actually diagnosed with autism. It's not, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I enjoy my autism very much.
I enjoy your autism as well. It's been a great show. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for
no
listening.
problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you, and peace out, my Grillas.
I'm old as a boomer. My mind said on Zoomer. Everything cooler, long as I'm not Laura Loomer. If you think I'm not number one, I dispel that rumor. Hit that victory royale on some motherfucking coochie. Default dance on a bitch. Hit the default dance on a bitch. Floss dance while I'm flossing in a whip. Victory royale when that chopper hit. Self-incrimination, I have no participation. News keep asking, I don't say shit. You can't have my conversation.